All right, we're going to be doing chapter 10 and 11, which is the early Middle Ages today. On our first page, we'll go to number 9, and this is chapters 10 and 11 in our new book. Start off with Middle Ages. This is the period from about AD 500 to 1500. And then the word medieval, or as I like to say with Alex Trebek, he says medieval. This is the Latin word meaning Middle Ages. This is quite an interesting situation that happened in medieval Europe, titled Trial by Ordeal, and it's just exactly as it states. You were placed on trial by experiencing this ordeal. So a person's guilt or innocence was determined by a physical test. It was a means of determining guilt in Germanic law, and the whole premise was it was based on divine intervention. If unharmed, the person was presumed to be innocent. For example, you might be placed in the river, dipped down, dunked, whatever, and if you floated, and obviously if you survived, I guess, then you were deemed innocent. But if you sank or drowned, you were guilty. The other one, if you held on to the iron rod that's glowing hot, as you can see, and you didn't get burned, then you were deemed innocent. So kind of a crazy way to determine. I would guess that most people were found guilty in this process. The Christian church, centered in Rome, was the leading power in medieval society. This is by the later years of the Roman Empire. So basically the church was not only the spiritual guide and head of the people, but it was also their government. The church played both of those roles. Clergy is the name for ordained officials of an organized religion. Your clergymen. And then orders are communities of monks or nuns. Obviously, monks were the men and the nuns were the women. By the 4th century AD, there was a sense of organization, led local Christian communities called parishes. And that was, getting ahead of myself, so that was the priests. They led those Christian communities that they called parishes. So the priest was the people's connection between God, or with God and man. Those priests also administered sacraments. A sacrament is a special religious ceremony. Now, for a lot of people, the word sacrament means taking of bread and water or wine, depending on the religion. But basically, it is a special religious ceremony. And then there's this list here. Baptism, confirmation, the Holy Eucharist, anointing of the sick, reconciliation, marriage, and holy orders were 7 of their sacraments. Okay, bishops. So we move from, so here's your congregation of people, then there's the priest. Next one up would be bishops. They supervised the priests and settled any disputes that they may have had over teachings and practices within the church. The archbishop led the parishes and he supervised the bishops. So a group of parishes were headed by bishops, and the area was called a bishopric or a diocese, and then a number of parishes could be overseen by the archbishop. Then at the top, now I am missing one, some will probably notice this. There's a group called cardinals, or College of Cardinals, and it was their duty to select the Pope, and I think on our last page of notes we'll get to that one. But the Pope, leader of the church in Rome, So they had different leaders within the Roman Catholic Church. And eventually, the leader in Rome came to be considered the overall head of the church. And the word papacy means the office of pope. Let's see. Pope is a Latin word for papa. And it says that Jesus gave the keys to the kingdom to Peter. And the bishops were Peter's successors. Okay. So this is around 500 AD. Small kingdoms were carved out of Western Europe. The strongest was the Frankish kingdoms under Clovis. The Franks conquered the Romans and Germanic people. Pepin the Short, who was the son of Charles Martel, was considered king of the Franks. And he began what was called the Carolingian dynasty. So Pepin the Short was from about 6 to 700 AD. Again, the kingdom of the Franks was the longest lasting of any of these empires and kingdoms at that time. And next one. So Charlemagne, also known as Charles the Great, he was the king of the Franks. So the grandson of Charles Martel is Pepin's son, from that earlier paragraph there. Charlemagne ruled from 768 to 814. This empire covered much of Western and Central Europe. So you can see France, part of Italy, Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, those areas were part of Charlemagne's empire at that time. So as far as this size of this empire, not until Napoleon in the 19th century or the 1800s would an empire its size be seen again. And his rule of this empire was symbolized by his coronation, which is represented in that picture there. Okay? So that concludes our first page, and thank you.